If you're an actor working on Portia's I should not need if you were gentle Brutus monologue from Julius Caesar, then you are in the right place. I'm going to talk you through everything you need to know to get it ready for your audition or exam. We're going to talk through the context for the monologue. We're going to talk about what everything means, and I'm going to talk about some common problem areas for this monologue and things to think about to make it unique for you, so your acting choices. So stick around for that, that'll be at the end. But let's start by just reading it through. So what I'm going to do for this monologue is I'm actually going to put these two sections together. I'm going to read it through the way that I recommend you doing it, cutting Brutus's section in the middle and one line of Portia's where she is responding to something that he said. So you'll see how it goes. Okay. I should not need if you were gentle Brutus. Within the bond of marriage, tell me, Brutus, is it accepted I should know no secrets that appertain to you? Am I yourself, but as it were in sort or limitation, to keep with you at meals, comfort your bed, and talk to you sometimes? Dwell I but in the suburbs of your good pleasure? If it be no more, Portia is Brutus's harlot, not his wife. I grant I am a woman, but withal a woman that Lord Brutus took to wife. I grant I am a woman, but withal a woman well reputed, Cato's daughter. Think you I am no stronger than my sex, being so fathered and so husbanded? Tell me your counsels, I will not disclose them. I have made strong proof of my constancy, giving myself a voluntary wound here in the thigh. Can I bear that with patience, and not my husband's secrets? Okay, so it's a bit of a banger. I love it. Okay, so super quick context. If you already know the context, please just skip ahead, especially if you've been watching the other videos about Portia's other monologues. So Portia is Brutus's wife. Brutus is thinking about maybe killing Caesar, who is general of Rome and maybe might become a dictator. They think maybe, and so they're thinking maybe they should just assassinate him. I don't know. And so there have been some people that have come to Brutus and said, I think we should do this. And he's out in the dark in wee hours of the morning, and Portia has come out and said, hey, why are you out in the dark? What's going on? So she's just gone through two big monologues to make her point. This is really important to understand, and that's why I recommend people to watch the other videos about the other monologues and really get to know the scene, because she's already kind of used up a lot of strategies and is now just frustrated with him and is being fairly direct. So let's talk about what everything means, and then after that we'll talk about handling some of that, fire that she brings to the table. Okay, so the first line is in response to something that Brutus has just said. And actually, you could even cut that first line and just jump into within the bond of marriage. Tell me, Brutus. It doesn't matter too much. I would play with both to see which one gives you the best jumping off point. Both of them are powerful lines, but you might prefer one or the other, and they're really acceptable either way. So she's just previously knelt down and said, I beg you, just tell me what's going on. And he says, kneel not, gentle Portia. And she says, I should not need if you were gentle Brutus. So I wouldn't need to kneel if you were being gentle Brutus, being like, if you were being a decent guy and just telling me what's going on, I wouldn't need to be kneeling down in the middle of the night, asking you about this stuff. So she's now kind of snapping a little bit at him. She's gone through the process of trying to be a bit chill, trying to play, and now she's like, dude. Within the bond of marriage, tell me, Brutus, is it accepted that I should know no secrets that appertain to you? So again, it's coming back to, which is referred to in the monologue before, I'm your wife. I should know what's going on. So she's referring to, I am your wife. Do you think that this is how a couple is supposed to behave? Within the bond of marriage, am I supposed to know nothing? I'm not supposed to know your secrets, basically. Appertain to you means like anything to do with your secrets, anything to do with you. Am I yourself, but as it were in sort or limitation? She's just said in the monologue before, again, go back and look at the monologues before, that being married, it's like they are one. And she's saying, I am part of yourself. Am I part of you, but only just kind of in sort or limitation, like just like a little version of you, like a limited version? Like, are there limits on how close we are, how much we are incorporated and one? The next bit is talking about what those limitations might look like. To keep with you at meals, am I someone that just sits with you at dinner? comfort your bed. We know what that means, like having a snuggle, and talk to you sometimes. Like, just hang around, eat dinner, get into bed, and then just chat when you feel like having a chat. Dwell I but in the suburbs of your good pleasure. Now, this is an interesting one because I always like the idea of it being like the suburbs being like the outer. Do I just kind of live on the periphery of you and your happiness and your life and your idea of who we are as a couple? But when I went into the readings and I actually did my research, very important to do because I made an assumption, it was talking about suburbs being kind of like the dodgy parts, not the, fancy city, but the suburbs being kind of the dodgier areas. So she's basically, in a lot of this stuff here, she's getting quite, it is sexual kind of references and kind of vulgar. She's, I think, offended and going like, am I just like an escort to you? And that's what she kind of says next in a minute. So dwell about in the suburbs of your good pleasure. Like, am I just kind of sitting on the edge to make you happy? And then am I just a prostitute, basically? And that's what she says next. If it be no more, Portia is Brutus's harlot, not his wife. You are treating me like a prostitute. Now, he responds, you're my true and honourable wife, as dear to me as the ruddy drops that visit my sad heart. So he's like, no, you're my wife. I love you. You're so important. I'm just sad right now. And she says, if this were true, then should I know this secret? If that were the case, you would tell me. But I would recommend, if you're kind of tying these two sections together, just cut that line so it flows, so you're not having to imagine that you're responding to someone, because that looks rubbish when you do an audition monologue. So just go straight on to, I grant I am a woman, but withal a woman that Lord Brutus took to wife. And so in this section, there's definitely a gear change here where she's like, yeah, I know that women are thought of being weak, someone that wouldn't be able to handle these kinds of things, but I'm your wife. If you are tough enough, then I am tough enough, and you chose me, so you know who I am, and you know that I'm tough enough. I grant I am a woman, but withal a woman well reputed, Cato's daughter. So she's the daughter of a general who was well renowned. She grew up in a military household. She's tough. Think you I am no stronger than my sex, being so fathered and so husbanded. So with my dad and with my husband, do you think I'm just like the others? I'm so much more. I'm so much tougher than that, and you know it. I'm adding here kind of the subtext. Next, tell me your counsels. I will not disclose them. So really, she's just getting to the point here. Tell me what's going on. I won't tell anybody else. This next bit, it's a sort of a funny reference, and it does reference self-harm. So if that upsets you, maybe this is not the right monologue for you, please feel free to switch off. I've made a strong proof of my constancy, giving myself a voluntary wound here in the thigh. So she's hurt herself and her leg. What she's doing is showing a physical representation of her toughness, and that may be hard to understand. So that might be something that you may need to make a substitution, where you're like, well, imagining that you've run a marathon or something like that, or like I've been training for a marathon, like mentally you're going to need to have something where you're like, this is the thing that I can do physically and I'm fine. If I can do that, can I bear that with patience and not my husband's secrets? Can I deal with all this stuff physically and not deal with the thing that's on your mind? Like, I'll be fine. So whatever you think you're protecting me from, just let me have it. So that's what she's talking about there. So especially that I have made strong proof of my constancy. She's talking about not just constancy like to him, but her strength. I've made an example of my strength. I hurt myself to show you I can be physically hurt and I can just carry on because I'm tough. So it's really, really important to understand how tough she is and the way that she sees herself. And that ties really well into the tips and choices that you need to make. This is something that I mentioned in the other videos, is something that people go wrong with, is that they can make Portia teary. And this happens a lot with Shakespeare, that people think, when the women are talking to the guys, that they're going to be very teary, but they're not. They're tough. They're tough women, and she is very tough, and that is how she sees herself. So make sure you have a strong idea of who she is as a person. The other thing to think about, it's a little bit of a tricky area. I mentioned in the other videos using sensory input, thinking about like where you are, you're outside, maybe you're cold, or that kind of thing. There is here another sensory input in that she hasn't an injury, she has a wound. So it might be like, for me personally, I've gone through a major injury recently. So something that I would maybe use as a substitution just to remember what that feels like is just like that pain of, I'm standing and I'm talking to someone, but I can feel this pain the whole time. And obviously she's very tough, so you don't want to be like going through your monologue and like wincing and rubbing your leg or something. But it can be something that gives you more specificity, more nuance if you're thinking about what's happening in your body. It's just basically sensory input. And even really simple things like wearing an uncomfortable shoe on one foot, or like uncomfortable undies, stuff like that can give you weird sensory input that it's just like, it's a distraction from what you're trying to do. And what she's doing is really demonstrating, I can overcome this. And that kind of mental gymnastics of talking to someone and being like, I'm so tough and I'm overcoming this and I'm clear, despite the fact that I can feel something here on my leg, that can be something that can be really interesting to play with. Now, please, of course, you don't need to hurt yourself. You don't need to go into any sort of traumatic substitution. There's no need for that. Honestly, like I said, an uncomfortable shoe will do the trick. Okay, so it's just giving yourself something that grounds you in your body is really, really powerful for Shakespeare. Okay, so I'm going to link below the other videos for Portia's other monologues, and I really recommend you watch them just to get a sense of the bigger picture, and I do give tips for those as well. Looking at the whole scene is so important. Okay, so let me know below how you're going with it, what your questions are, and other than that, I will see you in the next video.